Oh,
You get that recording.
well, that's okay. That could be a matter of record. My reply couldn't. Hello, Madam Chair.
How are you feeling?
I'm all right. All right today. Got some work done today.
I know. What can be said?
It's amazing what happens to you when you lose the structure of a regular job. And of course, when, I didn't work more than 4 months last year. I was out on sick leave for most of the year. So
Oh, I thought you had retired.
I retired the first of this year.
Oh,
I took disability retirement, but I got sick in April.
Very close.
And then, of course,
I think they have a question right now.
I think by St. Patty's Day, March, we were already working remotely.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't have any work to do. I had one thing. The last day I worked for the Department of Environmental Services, I sat as a hearings officer on a fine, contractor being fined for improper disposal of asbestos. So I conducted the hearing and everything. And so when I was told to take my laptop and go home, I said, well, at least I got a writing project. And there's no deadline under the statute, under the rules. So I took a whole month and I really put together an order, not knowing it would be my last bit of work for them. But no, it gets better. So my boss gets it. She takes a month. She sends it back to me. She uses track changes on Word. So it's a sea of red when she sends it back to me with annotations on both sides. And I read through it. She changed the findings. She changed the order, the result. So I said, I'm not going to do this. I wrote back to her and I said, this is my hearing order. I'm not signing this. You sign it. She was in the room observing, but
wow.
yeah, she was interesting. She retired in like June. So the unit was kind of decimated. I left, she left. My good friend works there. He's the one who talked me into applying for the job, but I have forgiven him. I was just desperate to get out of DCIS. I finally reached burnout. My boss was on my butt every day. And I was tired of it. Plus all the union stuff, which didn't make me popular with DHHS. I was blacklisted by DHHS. I applied for 100 jobs since between 2017 and 2019. And about half of them were in that department. Yeah, there was a couple I would have liked to have really, but it turned out for the best anyway. It's funny how these things happen, You accept your current situation and suddenly a new opportunity appears, and but like I said, I got to adjust. I got to be more disciplined. I got to start exercising again. Hello there.
Hi, stranger.
What's new?
Haven't seen you in a week.
It's been a long week, though.
Today has been a long.
Today has
week.
been a long week.
Sorry, I spoke out last week. I started getting excited.
Don't
when we were talking about
apologize.
geese.
For speaking,
Don't you dare apologize.
really.
I spoke without permission.
It's okay.
I just got out of the gym, and so I just kind of sponged bath.
You should have seen, I don't know if you ever watched the planning board back in the day. Oh, good evening.
I haven't.
David Bounce used to be on the planning board.
Yes, I did come to some of those.
And you couldn't stop it once he started. Like you completely lost control of the meeting. And if you did try to, steer him back to the agenda,
It didn't work.
he gave you a terrible, yeah, I know. And now I have Charlie, who has an opinion on everything.
Well, there's
Hello.
always somebody.
Hi,
How you guys doing?
all right. So I gather the master plan steering committee is canceled again.
No,
Was it supposed to be tonight?
they just hit reply. That's all, right?
Yeah, I thought the same thing too until I realized that No, she just replied to all.
Yeah,
in an
that's what I
email.
thought.
I was wondering about that because
It was just a
It
hit
is on
reply.
for, what is it, next Wednesday it was?
That was
no,
the last-
Tuesday,
Next Tuesday, the
it's 18th, I think.
19th.
The 19th.
Is it- Yeah, I think it was the 19th.
Good. They like to shake things up.
Said email.
I'll say, I leave this chair for Charlie, so he doesn't have to move around. Should we put another, is Charlie coming? Believe he's gonna be on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
Yeah, so it's on the 19th.
I didn't know if we needed a chair for him. But
I'm here.
so it's
He's doing
fine.
his bike tour and stuff. Just on TV tonight.
Okay, so
October 19th at 6:30.
we have everybody that's coming? Or do we at least have a quorum?
We do have a forum, so we are good.
Okay, I want to start. That's good. Thank you all for coming. I'm gonna go through this real quick so we can get right to the presentations. And I believe we have one member on Zoom. Is that me being too close? This meeting will be held in person in the notice meeting room in conformance to New Hampshire RSA 91A. A quorum of the board's members must be physically present in the meeting room for the meeting to start and or continue. The public can choose to attend and participate in person or by Zoom. If something occurs that disables access to Zoom, the meeting will continue regardless, and members of the public or board members using Zoom will have no recourse. Choosing to use Zoom is done at the individual's risk. Using Zoom requires the use of an enabled device. To participate on Zoom, use the following link: us02web.zoom.us/. Oh, my new contacts aren't working well. J/86398663261. Webinar ID 863-9866-3261. To listen only, call 1-646-558-8655 or 1-301-715-8592. Using this option only allows you to listen to the meeting with no opportunity to participate. To view this meeting, YouTube under the City of Laconia, www.youtube.com/LaconiaNH. And now I believe I can stop, right?
Yep.
Thank you. The lettering got too small, so we are going to do a call to order. Karen. Here.
Mark Haynes,
Here.
Michael Foot, Paul Dugan,
Here.
Stacy Susie,
Here.
Robert Himmel,
Here.
Bruce Cheney,
Here.
Charlie St. Clair,
Here.
and Gail Over.
Here. Our recording secretary is Karen Santorino, and staff in attendance is Rob Mora. Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from the previous meeting? And are they acceptable? Excellent. For the presentation of the departments, what we would like to do is let you present. And if anybody has questions, they're just going to jot them down. I would rather you not get interrupted so that you can just present. And I believe we are doing the police department first.
Thank you.
Evening, everyone. Al Grayson with the PD, Support Services Captain. Chief Matt Canfield. Our first request, as always, is our police vehicles. As you know, we rotate them on a basis of according to mileage and the amount of maintenance that they're needing. So we're requesting this year for 3 marked cruisers. That includes all of these major equipment inside the vehicles, radios, lights, cages, partitions. And also, we're requesting to replace our police motorcycle, which is 12 years old. And that is getting aged. Especially with motorcycles, they've come a long way with equipment as far as anti-lock braking systems and all sorts of new designs in them that would probably be good for the officer. It's a total of $225,000. The next request is a security fence for the PD. Requesting installation of 8-foot high security fence around the PD. Several times we requested through grants. We have not been able to get any funding through the grant system through Homeland Security. We have several notice on the narrative that you all have. There's been several instances of either criminal mischief or trespassing, steal actually police vehicles, damaging police vehicles, damaging personal vehicles. Most recent one was August of this year, where we had a subject that rode in from the Wow Trail area and threw bricks at one of our older unmarked vehicles, the side vehicle and the rear pillar of the vehicle. They almost put the brick through the back of the vehicle.
I just think I encourage people to take a look at this. I won't highlight it, but there's quite a list of stuff that we've had over the years in the parking lot of the police station. And, you know, if you look at Homeland Security, if you look at critical infrastructure, the police station certainly is one of them. If you look at most new police facilities that are built, they all have a fence system around them. I'm not a proponent of a fence because I like the openness and between policing and that. But some of these incidents have been very severe, like trying to steal a cruiser. They were inside of a cruiser. They were inside of the storage building. Someone committed suicide in the back parking lot. They drove there. Just numerous very serious incidents that a fence would prevent these things from happening. So liability-wise, I think it's important for the security of the police station. So I would encourage you to take a look at those when you have time.
Our next, and that total on that is $125,000. That would include a gate. People driving in, we'd have RFID cards, which would open the gate as we approached it. So rather than have to get out, punch a keypad, or the dispatcher have to go to the gate, we'd have that ability. Another one of our requests is for 4 more over police cameras, surveillance cameras. We currently have 8. We have a lot of requests for placing these cameras in different hot spots, different businesses that are being vandalized. Even along the Wow Trail, they've been requested. We have several right now out monitoring places, high drug activity. So with the amount that we have and all the different venues that we host, be it Bike Week, Pumpkin Fest when that comes back, Bike Timber Fest, Wake the Lake, Pumpkin Fest, now the Ironman Triathlon, we had deployed I think 5 of them just for that, just to keep security on all the bicycles and all the equipment for the planning stages for that. We have a large need for 4 more cameras.
These cameras, all they need is power, and they stream the video directly to the police dispatch. We can monitor them live in real time. I can tell you, we put it up on the Colonial sign when that first went up, and many other different places. But they're very important, not only for the big events, but also, I think we were working on putting one out in one of our car lots here in Laconia that's had just night after night after night of vandalism and stuff being stolen from vehicles. So it's something that we can put out there. We can stream it live to the police station, maybe curb the problem in addition to doing extra patrols and that kind of stuff. Until we can work with the business owner to install other cameras that they can use in a more permanent fashion. But these have certainly proved their usefulness and an additional forward to supplement that number that we have.
We currently have one that's just been designated just for Rotary Park. It's been there for months and months. So we can watch what's going on in Rotary Park and address it in real time. So rather than having to wait for somebody to call and complain, we can go down there and address it as it's happening. So the request for that would be for 4 cameras, be $55,000. Our next one is police technology training equipment. This was to be used as a placeholder, but we have recently become critically aware that our server at the PD needs to be replaced. Right now, and we just recently went through a cybersecurity tabletop also with the city. And we are ahead on some things, but our server as it sits, come the end of December, they will no longer be able to get any security or firmware patches. Those will not be available, won't be supported any longer. Those are very critical to keeping the security of the server itself from being able to be hacked into. Decreased productivity, as the chief can talk, the system is becoming very slow. A lot of times it hangs up and it's hard to work through, especially when officers are calling in plates and people's names to have those checked by dispatch. Higher maintenance costs, as we found out today at about 11:30 today, we did they were doing an upgrade, and the whole system has been down. It's still down currently, so that also affects our phone system in the PD as well. So we have one incoming phone line right now, and we have 3 tech people there at the PD currently working on to try to get it back up because the officers have no computers in the cars. Dispatcher has no computer access. Can't run people's names, those types of things. So there's a strong need to be able to change that. The new system that they're proposing has several different redundant servers, which will also give us the ability to expand as every day there's more data that gets stored in our system, more backed up. So in our server base grows larger. So we need something that they can expand easily. And the system that's in there now, they can't scale it any more than that.
Computers, as you know, are, at this point, it's a cost of doing business. It's a routine cost that we all operate on computer systems. Everything in our world is computer driven, whether it's our body cameras, whether it's our cruiser cameras, whether it's our security cameras, whether it's our computer systems, the multiple systems we log into. And this is a matter of time before it dies. This is an old server that was replaced 7-8 years ago at this point, and it's going to die. So this is critical. It gets replaced ahead of time on a schedule before it does crash, because once it crashes, it's not a server that you can just go down and buy and install the next day. It's something that's going to take months to acquire. So
That I know the price on that was 75,000, but the system that we've spec'd out is 80,000.
I didn't hear what you just said. 80,000, you said?
Yes, the system that they spec'd out to replace that currently. And that's like I said, it's scalable. We can add more backup, more drives and stuff to it to be able to get more. Our next one is police portable radios. All of our radios have a 10-year service life where they'll be supported by the manufacturer. We have just barely come to the point where all the officers have a new portable radio, but that has been taken about 5 years to do. Some of the radios that the first set of officers had, those were actually a couple of years old before we got them. So their service life is coming to an end. where again, they won't be supported by the manufacturer. You won't be able to get parts for them and things like that. So this is where if you look on the spreadsheet, this is kind of like a every year to be able to get all those portables on a replacement plan so that we can continue to have radios that are serviceable. And that is $35,000. Next, we have the police enclosed impound building and equipment storage building. As with any equipment, it needs to be taken care of. Right now we have 3 signboards, variable message boards. One's actually a radar board that we can use. We also have another radar trailer. We have the police motorcycle. We just received a grant for a emergency response trailer through Homeland Security. That will contain barricades, barrels, cones, all that other type of equipment. And we also have the previous year, we were approved for an incident command vehicle, which is still in its stages of being built with all the problems with getting chips and stuff for computers. That's still on its way. So these are large pieces of very expensive equipment that we will have at our disposal. But as you know, during the winter time here, those vehicles will be covered with snow. The signboards will be covered with snow, the trailers and things like that, and left out in the elements like that is going to start degrading them quicker. That would be half of the building. The other half is going to be for evidence storage. We take vehicles that have been used in crimes, those types of things that have evidence inside them that can be degraded by sitting out in the elements. The number of bicycles that we take in is crazy. So that would be an inside storage for those types of large pieces of evidence as well.
Not to mention, I think we have a duty to protect people's property when we take it. We take some very nice vehicles. We take a lot of bicycles that, unfortunately, the bicycle problem in the city is, it's complicated, but there's numerous bicycles that are stolen, chopped up, sold, found bicycles, lost bicycles, and we literally auction off hundreds of bicycles every 6 months. These bicycles sit outside in the rain and in the elements, and they're all rusted and they turn to garbage. So I think we do have a duty to protect people's property when we do take it, especially evidence and stuff that's taken against people as well. So it should be returned in the same condition we took it as. We did apply for several grants for this building. We applied through Senator Shaheen's office under a grant program. We also applied for a Homeland Security grant for this building as well. And we weren't successful on either one of those.
And the cost for that is $250,000. And again, speaking of equipment, request for another radar trailer. The radar trailer we have now is probably over 10 years old. It runs on batteries, and the LED board in it with the numbers on it is failing, so you can't really see the full speeds on it. We've reached out to the manufacturer, and they don't make parts for it anymore. So our suggestion would be, as we have 2 regular variable message boards and another one that does radar, we get that same type of message board. There's a software so that we can log into those boards. We can change messages. We can change the speeds on it. We can alert it. We can make it blue and red lights flash if somebody's speeding as they're going by it. So that would be we would take the place of that failing radar trailer that we have.
We would be eligible for our grant funding on that through the New Hampshire Highway Safety, which is a 50% matching grant. So the cost of that radar trailer would be cut in half if we were to be able to fund half of that.
Through the highway safety. But the total cost for that is $16,500. I think that is it for our requests.
Yes.
I appreciate this opportunity. I spoke to the chief earlier today. I suspect the other 2 councilmen will recall that we've heard a number of questions and requests about parking issues of late. And included in that were a number of people who complained about parking enforcement. So I called the chief and asked him to price out modern parking enforcement equipment. If you've watched Parking Wars on TV, you've probably seen some of that kind of equipment. So I want it understood, this is not the police department, but the counselor from Ward 1 asking him to come in and with a price for that kind of equipment. Parking is going to be, I think, a significant issue going forward here in the city, between the garage, between assigned parking spaces and 2-hour limits and whatever. And I checked, and we're one of the few cities in the state that has free parking everywhere. So enforcement becomes almost more important in this sense. I have some experience with this, and I can assure you that arresting someone for homicide or armed robbery or some other heinous crime usually gets less objection than a parking ticket does. I've had people scream in the police station at me over a parking ticket. And one of the reasons is I moved my car. And then I came back, parked in the same spot. The equipment I've asked the chief to look at will eliminate that argument because it identifies where the wheel is. They're not allowed to chalk tires anymore. That's, some court has decided that's an invasion of some constitutional right.
Yeah,
What's that?
Fourth Amendment search and seizure.
That was a stretch.
It took a lot of work,
Circuit
but
court.
the point is, this equipment will eliminate that argument. So I've asked them to add that to the list tonight, and I hope you'll forgive me for doing that. But I think it's important for a lot of other reasons, a lot of other things that are going on in terms of parking and the use of these lots. I think the city bought property just for the purpose of, well, not just, but largely for the purpose of adding parking to the downtown area. The least we can do is see to it that people start to use it, because right now they're parking all day in 2-hour parking spaces, and the police department has a difficult enough time identifying them and making sure they don't do that, without adding the difficulty of they can't even chalk tires anymore. So at the risk of bloviating for another 45 minutes, I'll ask the chief if he would, to give you some idea what that might cost.
Sure. So we researched this pretty hastily today, but what we found was the parking management software basically runs off of a tablet that the park enforcement officer would carry. They take a picture of the vehicle and marks the location of the valve stem, the plate number, and all that stuff. And I could do that, and then I could pass it off to another park enforcement person, and they would go down there. It would automatically alert them. They could walk down the street, and it tells them which vehicles are the time's expired on them. So it is the modern way of parking enforcement. The city of, or town of Hanover has been using this for what, the last,
Since 1999.
so, you know,
I haven't had a chance to talk to them yet, but
yeah, so, you know, and then in addition, it prints out a legible ticket versus a handwritten ticket that you can't read. So certainly it's on the cutting edge of 99 of parking enforcement. So that's what a lot of towns are using. It's not the only software out there, but it is something that we would be interested in acquiring for sure. I think that the costs associated with it, it goes by user licenses, so up to 3 licenses for people to use it.
yep. This is cloud-based, so, and it will also integrate with the kiosks that are down in the weirs. So the person doing the parking enforcement can use this Android phone to go down there as well. And when somebody pays at the kiosk in the weirs, it will automatically update into this software system, because they integrate. It'll say this space is reserved till whenever. So whoever's doing the parking can walk down through and go, I know that space is paid for already. So the cost per year for the first 3 years, with 3 users and 4 of the printers, is $34,525.
Say that again.
$34,525 per year for the first 3 years. And then it goes up by the CPI yearly after that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Have we looked into the standalone parking kiosks where people put money in and leave a ticket on their dashboard? Would that be less costly or is that even more?
If I might, I think we've looked into those kiosks and they're not inexpensive,
Okay,
to say the least. And the other part of the problem is you still have to get out there and see what's going on. The kiosks will automatically, that we have now, will automatically update. But there's still a large portion of the city that doesn't have kiosks that would, and you can't put in one or two. You got to put in
a lot.
a lot of them.
Well, that answers my question.
Yeah, well,
I'm
This
new
can
to all
also-
of this.
This can also be used for the free parking too.
Okay.
So if there's no charge for parking for 2 hours downtown, you wouldn't need a kiosk. So you just go park there. This just marks it that you've been there for 2.5 hours, and then
Right.
that's when the parking ticket would go into effect.
Okay,
That's what it keeps track of too.
thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Follow up. Bruce, has the council considered making some of the downtown parking, putting in kiosks and making them pay? Like the closest spaces maybe to the
Yeah.
downtown area?
I can't tell you that we've made a determination to do that. I can tell you that's been discussed several times. And I think there's been discussion, for instance, that Laconia is one of the few cities in the state that doesn't charge for parking. Parking's becoming more and more priority, as it were. The other night, we were talking about the spaces for the colonial apartments. And there were other building owners saying, what about me? Can I lease spaces and stuff? So, yes, I think we've talked about, we've talked about it, but I can't tell you that in fact, we're going to do it yet. If you ask my personal opinion, I think it's inevitable. It's just a question of time, but I would submit the other two councils may have a different.
I agree also, especially, once we remodel the parking garage,
That's
there's
what I
got to
was
be a
thinking.
payback on that
Yep.
for, people who use it or use the parking spaces, We got to come up with a plan because if you charge to go in the parking garage and you don't charge out here, where are people going to park?
Correct.
So there's got to be some, discussion of how that's all going to work.
In this, I think that reinforces what I'm suggesting we ought to consider here. Because what's coming, we don't know definitively what's coming, but whatever is coming is going to put pressure on them to do enforcement. And as I suggested from my personal experience, if we have a reasonably foolproof method of proving you were there for 2 hours and 30 minutes or 4 hours and 10 minutes versus the 15 minutes you claim you were there, that'll be very helpful.
Right. Well, would the chief be, are we talking about, that's just a cost for the equipment, right? That's not the salary for somebody to, like a downtown parking monitor or something?
Correct, that would be an addition.
That way
Yeah,
the
yeah.
training and everything would be included in your regular budget.
And if
I
I
mean,
get-
training on how to use the software.
Yeah, that's all
you Have the
included in that
manpower to
price.
control downtown. I guess what I'm trying to say, Madam Chair, is that as far as this whole parking thing goes, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. Seems like a good idea to me. It's better than the infrastructure because those kiosks are easily vandalized. They need maintenance, they need upkeep. This seems to be the way to go. It's smart. But with that being said, it just seems like we've got this real piecemeal approach in the city as a whole towards parking. But we're getting off subject here. But I guess what I'd like to see is some sort of comprehensive parking plan with participation for the police department, obviously, because you're stuck enforcing it. That addresses where do we go? You know what I mean? Do we have a 5-year parking plan in the city or a 3-year
That ain't
parking
up to
plan?
them.
I was gonna say, that's not in the budget.
No, I know it isn't, but
Speaking to the mic a
they're
little bit,
asking for
Charlie's
money
having a
for
hard time
parking
hearing.
equipment.
Via Zoom, just a little bit closer.
Who is it?
Charlie.
Can't hear.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Hello.
Um,
Okay, so let's swing back to,
I have a question actually about one of the presentations.
yeah, I do
Yes.
too, but
The security cameras, you said, that. Well, how do they connect to headquarters?
They have wireless internet cards in them.
You mean
have a cradle.
satellite?
No, they have a Cradle Point, a cellular service, FirstNet cellular service with a Cradle Point. Streams back to the PD.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, never heard of it. Thanks.
Gail.
yeah, different subject. Where would your fence go and where would your building go? Would you build, if you were to get the money for this building, would you put it like where the impound lot is now, where the skate park is?
Yeah, and our property line
Right?
goes back much further than where that impound lot is. So the fence would run along the property line from over where the skate park used to be. It'd run over behind the impound, over to the far corner, which is right, probably 20 feet away from the WOW trail, and then back over to where our undercover parking is.
Oh, okay. And then the building that you proposed, that would be within that fenced area?
Yes, it would be
Okay.
within inside of
That-
about kind of where the impound yard is
That's,
now.
yeah, okay, all right,
Yep.
I can see it now.
Yes.
Question goes to the fence also, and you're gonna put up a security gate at your entrance. So how is the public that needs to access the police station, where are they gonna park?
The gate would actually be in line with where the front of the carport is now. So the public parking would still be open.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
entrance would still be
Okay.
open
Okay.
as well.
Front entrance is still
Yeah.
there.
Okay, where the white building is there outside?
Correct. Yep. And certainly the aesthetics of it, I don't like it. I don't like going in a police station. You can't see into the building, but obviously there's a necessity for it. So this would not have barbed wire on it. This would not have lights on it. You know what I mean? So it would be kind of downplayed, but there is a definite need for it that just anybody can't drive into the back part of the police station.
And then one other question on another item. Last week, we heard a presentation on the Parks and Recreation Department about cameras, surveillance cameras in some of our city parks, and that had a price tag on it of $100,000, I believe. And there was a comment in there that said, see police department, so I don't know if you guys all work together to come up with that. Would these overt security surveillance cameras that you're requesting, could those possibly include, would they be movable?
Yes, they're.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are movable. I mean, I think these are a short-term solution to maybe long-term problems.
Okay, all right.
And I think that's probably where Parks and Rec was going, was. that
Oh,
they're
all right,
looking
all right.
long
I'm just
term.
trying to. okay.
We have one set up at Wyatt Park right now because there's been issues down there. I know the Parks Commission has met with a number of parents that there's been some issues down there. I met with the Parks Commission and a number of upset parents. In response to that, we put one of these cameras down there, but they are designed to be portable and
Oh,
to be
okay.
deployed, temporarily on a temporary basis. So.
Any other questions? Oh, yes.
I don't have a question, but I want to say to the committee, I have some experience with servers and the backup equipment. At 911, we automatically changed out all of our servers, all of our equipment on a 5-year rotation plan. When those systems go bad, it's like what they just described, which I hadn't heard until the captain mentioned it. But when they go bad, they go bad. Nobody says in the next couple of weeks, this isn't going to be good. It just happens. And electronics, whether it's in the police department, the fire department, wherever, in this day and age, needs to be put on a planned program replacement rather than the next time it breaks down. So I want to strongly support also their request for the software and the server equipment and other related items. IT items. And server security has become a critical matter in this day and age. When I started 911 in 1993, we had servers all over the place and nobody paid any attention to someone else getting into them. Today, we had people specifically assigned to monitor that on a daily, hourly basis because servers can be hacked so quickly. It may not seem like a big deal, for the Laconia Police Department to be hacked. I'm here to tell you, we'd all be horrified if hackers got into it and started using the data in there. So I hope you'll all support strongly that IT and server security portion of their request. Thank you.
Thank you.
And moving forward, that is part of our plan, is the 5-year plan, that is going to be replaced at 5 years. Much like the portables, like I said, 10 years of service on those. Computers is 5 years. That's as far as they're gonna go. And we have, in the background, have been doing some upgrades. We have a backup server that all it does is do backups every hour, and that all gets encrypted as well. And then that goes up to the cloud, which is also encrypted. So we've got backups, just need the physical hardware there to keep running for us.
Just a general question on, on all of these project need, with they ranked urgent, need, and desirable. And you've got, your urgent is on your security fence and your communications recorder, and then everything else is N. Is there anything, any of those rankings that,
I must have missed the
I was gonna,
recording.
are any of those rankings, would you change?
If the city's looking at going to VoIP phones for everywhere, and our current communications recorder only records analog. That would not work with that system at all.
So you would upgrade that to an urgent request and not a, I think, is that one urgent or, oh no, that one is urgent and the fence is urgent. Everything else is got a need. We get that. Are there any of these that, you would upgrade?
The server.
The server.
Yeah, the server, which was originally done in a police technology.
Oh, okay.
But then
All right.
the
Thank you.
status of the server came to light recently.
Yes. Counselor?
Yes. Going back to the cameras, council just accepted some money that was donated by some individuals for a security camera at Bartlett Beach. And what I was wondering, I don't know what the process will be to get those, but I think your input would be greatly appreciated to what kind of a camera would be there. Obviously, I remember way back when we tried the $5,000 cameras and they didn't work.
These cameras they're expensive. They're expensive because they're rugged. They're designed to be moved around and they run off of their own cellular card, and it makes it much easier to place them in different locations. I have been working with Brenda and Councilor Felch on those cameras for Bartlett Beach. Those are much easier because they can put a modem in the bathhouse at that location, and they're permanent cameras. That reduces the cost.
Yeah.
Portability, the ruggedized, and the ability to operate on a separate air card is what drives the cost of these cameras. But I have been working with both of them, and I think that the system that they're looking at is gonna
Okay.
work well for
Just
that.
as long as what we get will work and will last, instead of those first units we got. And,
Yeah, I think that
yeah, I
camera
think
is
your
very similar.
input would be very valuable towards what piece of equipment to lean towards,
Yep, I'll stay in touch with them as well.
Okay.
And that it interfaces with what we have for.
Yeah.
For equipment.
We would like that obviously to be monitored at the station.
Yep, that's the plan.
I was just curious. I know a lot of people are going toward the Blink systems and the Ring doorbells, but for those that still have ADT, are you guys still charging if you have to go out there and it's a false call?
We charge after we give 3 false calls, the 4th one we charge for. And that's if it's accidental. The whole purpose of that was that we would respond to dozens of false burglar alarms throughout the year.
Right.
From the
And it
same
would be
house.
it would be because there's something hanging and then they go away, they set the alarm and it moves and the alarm goes off. the whole purpose was not to, it wasn't punitive, it was fix your system. You know, if your system goes off, we want to respond to it, we will respond to it, but we don't want to respond to it numerous times for it to do nothing. So yeah, so usually we give 3.
That's a bit generous.
3 in a year. And then, yeah. But I mean, things do happen, right?
I mean, I
things
got a
do-
call once and then I got a letter and I'm like, you better believe I fixed it.
Exactly. That's the hope.
But I think 2 is, that's good.
I got one more.
Yes.
What's the total cost of a cruiser with all the equipment for one?
We're up to like $64,000. And again, the computers, it was probably 6-8 years ago when we started putting the patrol PCs in the cars. We're coming on to where we're gonna need to start replacing those because of some of them are Windows 7, which no longer have the security fixes for them. So you could get the computer in the car could get hacked. So we're having to start replacing the computers as well as all of our mobile radios we've been replacing as we replace a car. That goes along with our new radio system. So we can have the new digital technology along with an encryption technology. So as we're going through our cars, we're not going like, I need $300,000 to replace all our cruiser radios. We're doing them as we do a car. So those are close to $7,000 a piece, just the radio. The MDT is about $5,800 to $6,000 a piece. Then new light bars as we need those.
Do they fit the same? Can you reuse those?
Nothing fits.
We can reuse the computers. Yep.
So light bars don't fit?
Typically, no. And typically
You have
Right.
cages in those
When they
anymore?
went to the 2020, 2021 model cruiser, it went wider. So now your light bar is like this on the roof, so we need wider light bars as well.
the model changes everything. Sometimes it's a transition kit for like the petitions, but most often they don't fit.
Okay. What about the motorcycle? What are you looking at that for cost?
I ballpark it like 25 for the motorcycle. We need new radio for that as well. That radio is old as the old radios for the cruisers. A new light box with the new LED technology, so it can run longer. New LED lights on that too as well. So that's probably close to 30.
I was gonna say 30,
Yep.
maybe more.
First cruisers I ever bought as a police chief, I paid $2,800 for.
The
It's a few
SUVs,
years ago, I admit,
I
but
drove a Plymouth Fury.
yes.
the SUVs on state bid are around 32,000 just for the base vehicle.
You know, when I first came home from the service, I had a wife and 2 kids and needed transportation. I bought a pickup because they were cheaper than cars. I looked at a pickup this past year, $67,000 for a pickup truck.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, we just have one more
Background
question.
I
check.
just, I just have one more question. And especially with American cars right now, inventory is so light. What would the lead time be if you could order your 3 cruises now and you need them?
Cars in March, and they're
Yes.
due in by December,
Yeah.
but it's everything
And
this
you,
year.
and
is-
you need
is-
these cruisers, so you,
Yeah, everything this year is just out of control.
The command vehicle, we ordered the chassis, which is just a cab and a frame in April. They're not expecting to get it until the first of the year. So it's nuts.
So, but the other technology that you're requesting, like, you know, the communications thing, et cetera, the parking technology, is that all available? Is there a big lead time on that? Or don't you know? You haven't
I
even gone there
didn't, I
yet.
didn't ask about the parking
It's all chip
technology.
technology, so.
Yeah, I know the recorder, I think is probably a couple of months anyways. But we won't need to replace that until the spring when the city changes over to the OIP phone system.
Okay.
That's when we need to make the change on that. The cameras, maybe a month,
Why are all your phones down today? If
because
you,
they're tied into our network.
so they're not VoIP, but
No,
they
but
use
they
the
work
same-
through the network,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Paul?
I have a question on the cameras. I'm all in favor of the cameras. I just wanted to see if you could elaborate a little bit on like, I'm gonna call it the success ratio, or is it more of a deterrent, or are you actually catching or convicting people of a crime that's committed that you have on camera, that
I
kind
don't
of
know if we
thing.
have any statistics on, as far as conviction rates or what we're catching, but they are overt cameras. They look like a police camera. It's got our
They have
patch on it.
Patch on it, so it's not hidden.
So there is deterrent effect there by putting a camera there. But there is the other thing is, one, our dispatcher, it streams live to our dispatch center, so our dispatcher can see what's happening and monitor it. So routinely, our dispatch center, like we do have one at Rotary Park, they'll notice, hey, there's a large group of people down there. I'm not sure what they're doing. They've been hanging out there for a couple hours, and dispatch an officer there before we get phone calls. The other thing is when someone does call, we can look at the camera right away and get information quicker before an officer gets there.
So it's recording evidence as well.
It is. And, yeah, and it records.
They had great success on Cottage Street.
Yeah.
That's the only example I could think of.
I can tell you, we use the camera on Cottage Street, so we use it for those criminal activities. We have it up on another location right now. It's amazing. They know it's there. They're dealing drugs out of the house. They go out through the back door to deal the drugs. So, it definitely has an effect to them. So.
Yep. Okay.
Any other questions?
I just want to say thank you to all of you. I appreciate you hearing our requests. I know this is a significant number of requests this year. We don't take that lightly. We cut other ideas, other requests. We wanted to bring to you what we feel is needed. We've done very successful with grants, as federal grants lately. We know that money doesn't come easily, and we respect that. And we wanted to bring items that we can't fund other ways to you. The command post vehicle that the captain talked about, fully funded 100% for federal funds, that's coming to the city of Laconia, not the city of Nashua. So those are resources, that we are bringing in. We routinely look for grants to fund things first. So I appreciate everybody's time tonight. And
Yeah,
certainly, if you have
Do
any
you guys
questions
have
after.
do you have an IT staff person?
We have a person that does some of will deal with small issues there at the PD. We have a computer company that does all of our major.
It's a contractor.
Unfortunately, it's just such a specialty that, to have someone in-house for a relatively small police department to stay up on it doesn't make sense.
So
So,
I know.
As a friend of mine said, get a 12 or 14-year-old, he'll probably be able to
right.
Yeah.
get you through all that stuff.
They have to be 14 and get permission.
Your
Yeah.
son will be just about old enough in a couple of years. You can bring him in and tell him to keep the computers up.
I think we just have one more
Basically,
question,
it's-
and
it's
I
just
had
a-
a comment for you too.
Yeah, mine's just a comment too. I want to thank you for your efforts over the years on writing these grants. 'Cause your department is probably the department that has written the most and had the most success. And it means a lot to the city. I mean, money is not free, but for the city to come up with the amount of money in grants, I think it's well over $1 million that you guys have done. That means a lot. And taxpayers, they pay for it in a way, but I mean, it's not part of the budget.
Right.
You get the equipment you need. So I, as a counselor, appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you.
And I want to thank you for that.
recognizing
Good job doing that.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of what you guys do. I actually went through the Citizens Academy a couple of years ago. And when I left there, honestly, I probably would have paid for that experience because it was amazing. And you guys did a great job, but I don't know if something to think about. I think people would have paid for it.
Well, we just, we
Too late.
want to educate people on what the police department does. We want them to know.
It's a
and-
great program.
I went
but-
through it. I'd advise everyone here to go through it if you haven't yet. I
Did
mean,
you
it's
get
really
a
good.
full
No, you don't have to.
class this year?
We had zero interest. I think we had 2 people that wanted to do it. so
Really?
we didn't run it.
I think COVID
But I think it's because of
scared them.
COVID and people don't
Yeah.
want to come out and they don't
Yeah.
know. So we're gonna definitely pick it up next year. I think we're working with one of the elderly homes to do something scaled down version and bring it to them for the winter time, but
Because I mean, it is valuable, and if you want to put something as valuable, you got to put a price on it. It's just like dogs at the shelter. They charge quite a bit for them.
I think our return is the community support that we get after we run it. Once they actually see what police officers do and the things that we have to go through.
It is a great experience.
And if you know anyone, we're having an open house next Saturday, October 23rd,
Charge them.
from 11 to 2. So come on down.
11 to 2.
We'll get those radios.
Next Saturday, 11 to 2.
Next Saturday, 11 to 2. Yep. So we'll be doing, unveiling our police card program, our trading card program,
I did
and
it
doing
3
some
years
demos of our specialty units and tours and stuff. I think you'll get an official invite, but
Well, thank you very much.
thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, so we are up now to,
Madam Chair, I noticed that the minutes that were attached are from 9/23, not last week.
I have 10.
Are they both there?
Oh, I have 10-7 at the top. And then 9/23 under.
Well, the agenda says October 7th at the top. Yeah.
This is what I
This is
printed.
Oh, I see. Okay. This is probably the one from last week. Never mind.
It's okay.
No, my mistake. I was looking at last week's packet and thinking, wait a minute.
Okay, I believe we have planning next.
Short and sweet.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Mora, Assistant Planner for City of Laconia. So on our request this year, we had one vehicle. You can scratch that. I acquired a vehicle today, so we don't need that.
That's awesome.
So
That was easy.
On sale?
Was it at the impound lot?
yeah, it just ended up
No one
without the
claimed
parking
it.
lot. I don't know how that happened, but no, acquired a vehicle today, so everything is squared away on that one. We did have one non-departmental project on the list. Amy put it on there for this year. It's really more of a floating project. It was for renovation of the office. The estimated cost was $50,000. Though we had a engineer that has worked with the city before offer to do it pro bono for us. So we don't have any engineering costs associated with that anymore. So it would only be the cost of materials and labor to do the job. And the main goal is that is as we're trying to move forward towards the future, code and planning are kind of merging almost as one. And it allows us to put a planning and code person next to each other in one office, put a real customer service window, redo all the counters in there, rearrange the offices, and put up some of our paper files off the floor. I don't know if any of you are aware, several years ago, a water main burst in City Hall in our archive room. It was quite a flow, probably about 20 gallons a second. It seemed like it was coming out of there. It's quite a waterfall. We had everybody in here, the fire department in here, pushing water out as fast as they could get it until the water department could get it shut off. But we lost a number of paper plans that are permanently gone forever. And in our archive room, we have plans going back to the establishment of a planning department and the establishment of a zoning ordinance. And there's a significant historical presence there that we obviously would want to maintain. And this renovation would get those off the floor. So if anything was to happen again, we would not have that damage and not have to throw away moldy plans or damaged plans from water main breaks. So
It'd be cool to look at the urban renewal stuff.
there is quite a bit of stuff downstairs, and anybody that ever wants to come in and just look through some of our stuff, I welcome you. I'll take you back there myself. We can look through anything. Like I said, it's more floating. It's a desire. Hopefully that water main doesn't break every year, but it broke once and
That's all it takes.
So you said the 10,000 is, you don't need that?
nope,
now?
the 10,000 we don't need anymore. So to actually just being the $40,000, which Amy estimated for us to rearrange everything, take down a few walls, get everything off the floor, to save plans should anything happen again.
same request you had last year?
Yeah, we did have that request last year as well. But we had several other requests, but we got the vehicles all squared away now, so just that, we don't ask for much. Questions, comments, concerns?
Oh, yes.
You're starting to sound like the mayor. Who's as sick of me as you're getting to be. Rob, I wonder about technology in your office and if you are aware of any technology needs that we really ought to be thinking about.
So I'm very glad you brought that up. We're very, very excited down in the planning department this year. We got a new software program where we're still in the implementation phase. It's been going on for a couple years, but we're going to a smart gov system. So we will be moving completely electronically, hopefully in January at some point, where all the residents will be able to submit plans, permits, zoning applications, everything right online. It streamlines the entire process. Somebody that was to submit a building permit today, it would get routed through all the departments that would normally have to go through. And they can see in real time as the fire department says, oh, you need to have a sprinkler plan attached with this, or the water department says, oh, you need to have a backflow over here. All that will work together seamlessly. It'll be all in the cloud, and residents can look at that as the building inspector goes out to look at all the projects out there. He'll have an iPad or a tablet with a Wi-Fi cellular capability, and he can actually acknowledge all the inspections as it's going out there real time. And it sends notifications to all the residents that your inspection was completed, it passed, where it failed. You need this or that. So that's all electronic, and that will, all of our new files moving forward will all be maintained digitally. So we won't have the incoming paper that we normally have. I know was it 3 years ago, we bought about 15 new file cabinets to maintain all the paper copies that we have of everything. So this will put a stop to that. We'll be moving all digital. So it's really, it'll be fantastic.
I'm hopeful that included in that is an upgrade of code enforcement's technology.
Yes, there is an app. We paid for the full package. We got that. So it allows a building inspector or code enforcement or the zoning person to go out there. If somebody calls, go out there on the iPad, you take a picture, it attaches the picture right to the property, and it generates a violation letter right there. All of our codes will be uploaded to it, and you can cite somebody right there. You can print it out right there and leave a notice right for them at the door. It's pretty fantastic. So
Unless there's no cell service.
unless there's no cell service, I mean, there are some spots in Laconia, but even if there's no service, it saves on the iPad locally until you get back to an area that has
Oh, good.
capability.
Okay.
But even though we have that capability, we always send out everything via certified mail to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
And would you need more technology? Would this all, like for the planning boards, conservation, all the planning boards, would we be going to a computer-based model at our meetings, or would there still be the hard copies of that stuff?
So the goal with that would be not to do paper anymore. We've been trying to move paperless, and we have iPads over here that that we share with city council. And as planning board has the capability, and
And what do you do with us Luddites on the board?
I'm sure there'll be a learning curve for everybody, but we would be very happy to make sure everybody was.
Need to
Up on it.
talk to that 12-year-old that lives next
We
door
all
to you.
need a 12-year-old attached to our.
I'm sure as we get there, we can do a training session.
Any other questions?
Sounds good, bro.
I'm very happy that you got your car.
Me too. Everything works out, Good things come to those who wait.
It does.
Yes, I do have the typical PowerPoint.
We love PowerPoints.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
Page 1.
I knew that. Just making sure. you knew.
It's showing.
It's showing.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got it.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Wes Anderson, the Director of Public Works, and what you'll see is pretty similar to last year's format we did presentation wise, except I'm going to go a lot over what changes there have been in the federal and state grant programs, because that sets up a lot of discussion that's coming next. Okay, a lot of terms going out there in regards to the congressionally directed spending request. Used to be called earmarks. That is a program or a way that they use existing and funded federal programs, and the congressman or senator basically says, this project will be funded this year. So it comes out of existing money. It's not any additional money, and it has to still meet all the rules of that program. So if the program requires a match, we have to pay a match. If the program says it only applies to this sort of infrastructure, it only applies to that sort of infrastructure. So you have to request your congressionally directed program to meet what program it's coming from. They keep changing the name all the time. It's now called the RAISE grant. That is a transportation related grant. It's not competitive at the state level. It goes directly to the federal. The project has to be between $1 million and $25 million, and it's a cost benefit ratio that you have to show. They had 9,700 applications the last time. 680 were selected for a 7% selection rate. So it's extremely competitive. The selection criteria is what you see below. They also prioritize it. And they're looking for, when they prioritize their projects and racking and stacking them, they're looking at racial equality, reducing impacts of climate change, and creating good paying jobs. Not the good paying jobs for the construction of the project, but the good paying jobs associated with the continuation of whatever you construct. The other piece to it, and we just recently received one, is the Transportation Alternative Program. That only applies to pedestrians, bicyclists, and multi-use trails. It's a federal program, state managed. So the state is the one that selects it. DOT receives $2.5 million a year for it. Federal regulation says it must be in their 10-year plan. So we recently submitted it, but because it's in the 10-year plan, it's for fiscal years 23 to 32. And the latest from DOT is basically they know that some people aren't going to be ready in time. They're going to shift that money to whoever is ready first, even though you may be in a later year. And right now we're in fiscal year 29 and 32 for the federal TAP grant we got for Elm Street. On the NHDOT side, the State Municipal Bridge Aid Program, it's in dire need of additional money, but it's not going to get it. Right now, they're overcommitted. They have 113 bridges enrolled in the program. There are 69 of that 113 are on the red list, and they're saying they might open it up again for new projects sometime over the winter for fiscal year 29 or after.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
Okay. Our pedestrian bridges are not eligible for this program. So the Winnipesaukee River Basin Bridge, the Winnipesaukee Bridge right here is not eligible for this, but it is eligible for the Transportation Alternative Program. What we have on the red list right now is Academy Street, Langley Cove, which is the one by Weirs Boulevard, on Weirs Boulevard by our pump station where Brady Sullivan's going to build the new development. And we have the Recreation Bridge that's right here. So what does that mean for us? Our road program, some point in the near term future, may become a road and bridge program. There may be times that we're not able to put the money into roads. We may have to put that money on to get our bridges to maintain to the point that will survive till we can get it into the state municipal bridge aid program. Additionally, if we really want to get into the TAP program and we want to use that RAISE grant, we're going to have to start thinking about 10 years out when we're doing major projects. So we can submit it to get it into the program, be competitive for that money when we need it. Not when we can't say next year we want it. We're having to think 8-10 years out to get that money. What is in the draft plan that just came out and they're having the public hearing here on the 27th is there are 2 state projects in our area. One is the removal of the wood bridge over the railroad tracks at the end of Lakeside Avenue. and the Route 3 bridge over Mile Hill Road. Okay. The city projects that are in it is the Academy Street Bridge, which is scheduled for 2023. It's already in the program, and you'll see that later because we're going to have to fund our share of the match. And we have the Elm Street multi-use trail. We're also getting a slice of the American Rescue Plan funding. That was the money that was approved in the March timeframe. This is actually money that was associated with reimbursing the city for COVID expenses. If we had more money available than we had expenses, we are allowed to put it in support of clean water projects. The definition that came out with it is sewer, water, and stormwater. The estimated funds that we're going to be given, the city manager talked to the council, not last meeting, but the meeting before, is from the 20 to 21 to about 22 July, we'll have around $300,000 available to us. What we're doing that is putting into projects that we've already done where we had drainage money. That frees up the road program money to do more paving. And that's what we're working on, that piece. The other piece is we anticipate from sometime shortly after next July, we'll get another $860,000 that's going to be available to us. And we're looking at to do sort of the same thing, put some of that into Elm Street, Massachusetts, and Jefferson's drainage that's already scheduled project to free up that money to do other roads. And then the other piece we're looking at is to start fixing some of the drainage in Weirs Boulevard. Okay, so CIP, major changes that you see between last year and this year, Court Street Bridge will be complete. We may be coming in the springtime just to do the final surface coat on it, but it'll be finished before winter and be passable and walkable and everything. For the Elm Street project, you'll see we have Lakeport area crossing, but it's still there at the same time. We'll have done the piece that's Clinton, Prospect, Hill, and Mechanic. That portion will be done. The piece that we'll be working on, and you've already seen it start, is Elm Street, and then we're working Jefferson and Massachusetts. Also on the schedule for that is Beach Street, which is on Mile Hill. Okay, then we have Academy Street, which theoretically, depending upon how we finish on the design, when the state is able to do it, we could be starting that towards the end of next year, or we could be getting it the year after that. And we need approximately 170,000 additional funding to go towards that match. From the ADA standpoint, there's really no change between last year and this year. We didn't get any additional signal money for it. And you'll see that'll be critical as we come through to talk our ADA transition plan. This is a, hate to say, it's a transition year for the ADA transition plan. It's a little bit of both on it. Next year, you'll see it different, shown differently to you. So what we've basically got remaining that we have in program is Church and Beacon Street East, and then North Main and Oak Street. The Busy Corner and Guilford Ave are all associated with projects that we've got scheduled later on to be done. There's a lot of questions.
I'm sorry.
Okay. There are a lot of questions came up in regards to the flashing left turn arrows that you see at the two intersections.
Yeah, those are
So we've got it in Main Court and we have it at Elm and Union.
Yeah.
Okay. Signals that could have it would be Main and Oak, Union and Guilford Avenue, and Busy Corner. But on Busy Corner, you could only do it on the two Union Ave legs. You can't do it on Church Street, and you really can't do it on Davis Place or Winter without causing accident numbers to go up.
Right.
Okay. Signals should not be, these flashing left turns should not be at Union or Messer because the intersection is funky. Shouldn't be really at Beacon Street East and Church. That could change later depending upon what we determine to be the way in and out of the parking lot back there, because that's the absolute essential portion to be able to determine what we can do with this intersection. And then Main and Church, as we have it presently signalized right now, we can't do it. If we change the whole signal pattern to it, we could theoretically do it. As if you look at it, North Main Street going north, I should say Main Street is on its own. South Main Street coming south, it's on its own. So it's not conducive to doing a flashing left turn arrow. Okay, so our concept and what we'll be pushing is for a 10-year plan for our arterials to start get us in the ability to start requesting the federal grants and the timeline that they need. And the timeline gives us the best ability to schedule it. And so sometime in the fiscal year 2026 timeframe, we're looking Union Avenue, Stark to Blackbrook. That's that brook by T-Bones. Okay. Then Union Avenue from Main Street to Guilford. Remember, we paved it, but all we did is we just put a surface coat on it. We did
Right.
nothing else to it. It really doesn't meet ADA standards. It's just buying us a few years till we can get it scheduled. And then Union Blackbrook to Lake in 2032. We can change the years around depending on funding and everything, but we, and I mean that from the city council standpoint, Public Works, we've got to start figuring out what our major roads we're doing when to be competitive into that federal grant type program. That still leaves Court Street, Bridge to Belmont, which is holding up pretty well, and where's Boulevard? So what we are doing in Public Works in the interim from the road program, we're looking at these years and what we have to do those roads in the interim to get us to last that long. So that money's going to be scheduled and the interim fixes and can't be used for any other projects. We're just doing it to get it to that point. Okay, so out years, we still got this bridge issue we're going to have to deal with. Realistically, we're probably 2039, 2040 before we can get any of our bridges into the state municipal bridge aid program. We've got ones that we already know. This was a engineering assessment of our bridges with how much work, how much was going to cost 2 years ago to get it up to the point where the bridge could keep working. We are doing this fall enough on the Messer Street to sort of repave it, the Messer Street Bridge, so we don't lose the membrane and any of the structure underneath it because it's leaking so bad through it. On the downtown pedestrian bridge, it could be, if we're not careful, the next parking garage. In other words, we keep pushing it off. We got to make a decision on it. The next really plan for that, we probably should be looking at the next TAP grant application period, which should be in 2 years, 2023, because that's the next time frame they're using for the 10-year development plan or 10-year plan for DOT. So the next submission will probably be in late 2022 for a 2023 decision into the process. So the next available money grant-wise is probably that time frame. Okay, so now the out-year projects that we'll talk about, we have to think about the north end of the Weirs Beach Boardwalk. It's still the old pressure-treated wood. We put someplace between $2,000 and $5,000 into it every year just to replace certain boards. It's going to need a lot of work at some point. City Hall parking lot, there isn't a program that funds any of the repair or maintenance for it other than us going out with our normal O&M dollars to put pothole patches in it. I'll talk more about the Warren Road landfill remediation. Drainage is an issue. The MS4, which is the municipal separate storm sewer system regulations that fall underneath the EPA. They're working from the Massachusetts border north. They're just south of Concord in the Pembroke, Allentown, that area, working away. I anticipate in the next 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, we will be underneath that rule. That means we are now going to have to be at the point where stormwater is permitted and we have to meet the terms of the permit to be able to dump it into the lakes and streams in the city. So they're going to be looking at sediment in it. They're going to be looking at nitrogen and phosphorus, how we're controlling volume. I've been in cities that had that program. It's intensive and it costs. Okay. The ADA program status. By federal regulations, we are required to complete a self-assessment. We finished that. We've been required to do it since 1990. We had one partially done, but nothing else was done with it, so we updated it. The second piece of that is the development of the transition plan. We are supposed to take everything that we identified that is wrong in the city from the public infrastructure standpoint and develop a plan, prioritize, and when it's going to be funded, and have it all approved and whatever, so it's available for the public to see what we're doing. What we're doing right now is we're trying to get that data that we have and get the engineering assistance to convert that into cost estimates and a priority model that we can start to get through the process of determining how we're going to fund it over multiple years. And that could be a 10 or 15-year program. We have 2 resident requests that are already in the program and we're working towards. One is to prove the ADA accessibility from the Sunrise Tower to Peachy Park. And we are actually getting there from the standpoint of fixing the traffic signals. So we've got Main and Court done. We've basically got Church and Main done. The next one we've got to do is North Main and Oak. And then you can get there. There's some other issues in between, but we've been gradually biting it as we do things. And then an ADA accessible crosswalk that gets you from the Hilliard Road side across East Endicott Street north to get to the sidewalk. The other option is you construct sidewalk on the other side of the road by where Farrell's used to be, all the way down to link up with the crosswalks down by the movie theater. Okay, this is the beginning of the transition plan. What you're going to see next year is I'll start pulling in all the construction portion of it. That is the traffic signals and such into it. So it'll be one merged list. But we're looking for someplace around 40,000 for the development of the transition plan. And then this is the portion that's associated with the parks facilities. So they're looking at water access at a couple beaches, some ADA improvements, begin designing the ADA improvements to have ADA accessible playgrounds for Tardif and Levitt, and then getting an ADA accessible door at the Wood Community Center. Okay, so one-time projects that we have scheduled for this year. We still probably need to be thinking of some seed money in there for bridges, just in case it does come open, they do put the window out. Generally, what we found, if you want to get into the state bridge aid program, you got to say you're serious and you put some money towards it. So we'll allocated 40K for 2 of the bridges. Hilliard Road's a possibility, could be another one. We put that in there. The city docks, we already have a grant to do the modifications necessary to support the 26-foot boats and 6 feet of water. We have a $63,000 matching grant that we're going to have to put towards it. The only thing that I can see is once you get those new docks all modified, everyone's going to start complaining, what does the old docks look like? So we have put a repair and maintain the remaining city docks in there for $220,000 for next year. It could slide, but you're going to see brand new finger docks sections where we have repaired, and then it's going to transition to the old, what's presently existing. Safety. So some point we should consider putting a rapid flashing beacon at South Main Street at the Vista. We're still having issues with people not stopping, for people who are trying to cross there. A planning allocation to really support the development of bike lanes and sidewalks on Long Weirs Boulevard. It's not so much as construction or design as to figure out how do we fit it in there to get it from basically Shaw's all the way up to the roundabout.
It's a lot of easements.
Yeah. We have a lot of land in the easements. It's just a matter of where we putting it in there. And it gives us the ability to start showing what we own, start working with the property owners to know that it's not their land, it is city right away. That in places, consistently it's 60 feet wide. In places it goes 70 to 80 feet, depending upon where it was wider for the purposes of the old trolley system and where they had pull-offs and loading zones. The aerial mapping that we have for the city dates back to 2016. At some point, we're got to get it updated so we have better, accurate data available to every department to show what the city looks like at a good resolution. And then resurface City Hall parking lot. Some other one-time projects looking at for next year, fiscal year 23-24. We need to put an electrical vehicle charging station someplace in the city. There have been some grants out there, but we have not been competitive only because the state's focusing what money they have on getting the main corridor along 93 done. And we're just a little bit too far off that corridor to get it. The crosswalk across Endicott Street North, I'm showing that again for 23, 24, we have a benefit here. And that is we have that new condo development up there. We could partner with them. We could cost share some of our costs with it for construct a portion or a side of it, and they could pick up the other side, lowering our costs. So we're going to be talking that through the planning process, but we're going to have the money available to be able to do that in when they start constructing their project. And then rebuild north end of the boardwalk. Okay, we have annual programs. Typically, we always request or someplace around 1.6 million for the road program. Current year, we were 1.41. So we've been focusing on what we can do. Again, we have the ADA accessibility portion. In this particular case, the federal regulations are every time we pave a road, if it has sidewalks on either side, we have to bring those sidewalks up to ADA standards. So that eats into what we can do pavement-wise if we do a road with sidewalks on it. Road doesn't have to have sidewalks, but it does, then we have to bring it up. Citywide drainage, we already talked the MS4 program. We probably could afford to give up the stormwater drainage that you see, 150,000 for the upcoming, because we've got that 860 coming towards us. The problem comes in is we need to make sure that we're planning for the year after that, so that money's available the next year. We don't want it to disappear because you still need it. So that could be directed for a short period of time, to another program. Again, depending upon what we find on Where's Boulevard, but has to be put back into the program for the following year. Sidewalks, there are sidewalks we just need to do where the roads are still in good condition. So we put some money in for that. Fence, guardrails, retaining walls, generally, we're repairing guardrails in a year from accidents. It's not covered by insurance unless the other person has insurance. And all those black fences and other fences that you see out there that prevent people from falling off the sidewalks, we're having to replace them as they're hit or as they start falling apart. And then the annual bridge maintenance program is really designed for those low-cost ones where we've just got to do something like changing out the expansion joints between the road and the bridge. Okay, so annual programs continued. Parking garage to annual inspection, depending upon our meeting and what we talk about on the 25th, we may have one more inspection that we have to do. So I put in the request for the money for next September, October to be able to do that work. Moore Road land, landfill remediation project. We're getting 10,000 per year to keep the effort going to do all the paperwork that we need to do to remediate that landfill site. If you're unfamiliar with it, as you're looking up from 107, on the left is the Frank Bean Road burn dump, which we just remediated. On the right is the old landfill that we have to remediate. DPW vehicle purchases, I increased it from 210 to 235. We'll talk more about it, but I'm just putting in for the cost of inflation. Cost of vehicles are going up as well as everything else. And then we do have a lot of gravel roads and we've got to start doing the safety inspections on the downtown pedestrian bridge, the one right over here. On the vehicle replacement side of the house, we had, let me back up. For the last couple of years, I've been focusing on replacing my F550, my smaller plow trucks that have the plow in the front and the wing on it. They're not really designed for the amount of use and abuse that we have for the plowing. So they get replaced more often. I've gotten caught up with that. So we're starting to look at how they schedule to replace our larger trucks that we use. We had one year we did a bonding, replaced a few. What I'm looking at is instead of doing that and having to ask for bonds every 5 or 10 years, is trying to get a replacement schedule where I do 1 or 2 trucks using a lease to purchase arrangement, and I'm paying off the bonds in that time. So I'm always recycling trucks through the process. Right now, I'm paying between leases and bond payments about $100,000 a year out of that 200,000 for it. So that's not covered for anything to replace new vehicles. Just to give you an idea, the last vehicle that cost was around 178 for that 6-wheel 33,000 GVW. That's my big yellow trucks. They're probably closer to $200,000 or more at this point. The last sidewalk tractor that I bought was 193,000. That had the plow, the blower, and the mower that we use. Now, I don't necessarily need another mower, but if I'm starting to replace sidewalk tractors, that's the price range that we're talking about. That particular vehicle worked well for us. Not only were we able to plow snow, blow snow with it, you may have seen it out most of the summer. We were using it to side hill cut and cut along the sides of the road. Okay, as you can see here, this is the age of my fleet. You can see where on the F-550s, for the most part, we've done a pretty good job of getting that fleet changed out. What I have to do, what I have to work on is my larger trucks. Okay, Public Works compound. Long-term picture, we need to size my building, not what I'm doing now, but what you are intending the city to be 25 years from now. If we anticipate we're having a lot of expansion, a lot of redevelopment, or a lot of development in the north side of the city, if that was public streets, that means new vehicles, additional equipment to go up there. That means I have more people, that means I have more equipment to park. So all that needs to be taken into it. So a lot of that is going to be from what is the city planning as a master plan, and what's the plan for there, when they anticipate it happening, so we can size the structure to be able to expand or find a site that's expandable to support the city in the future. You're building a building that may be 50, 70 years before you do anything to it. You got to have a site that's able to support what the future of the city looks like. Morton Road landfill was a landfill till about 1962 for traditional household waste. And after that, it got turned into construction and demolition debris. A lot of the urban renewal stuff went up into that area, as well as city road procs and others. Interesting enough, we've got 14.4 acres of that site is in Laconia. The rest is in Guilford. Most of the landfill portion is in Laconia, and some extends over to closer into Guilford, but on our side of the brook. So Public Works compound, things that we need to think about. Right now, all our yard waste is taken over to Guilford. For the last few years, they've been expanding, we've been expanding. We are pushing their ability to compost our yard waste. So we're having to start looking at sites where we can put all of our leaves and everything during the summer and the fall time to be able to get it composted and do something with it. At some point, we're going to have to figure out how we're handling our own construction materials that are coming from our road projects. Because that is a controlled item. You know, do we put all the concrete, the granite blocks someplace, get it crushed every so often, and we have gravel off to the side? But if we're doing that from that standpoint, it's a permitted type operation that we have to have. And then limited use soils is the fancy term for the soils that are underneath pavement. That's considered contaminated soil. I cannot take it, I cannot dump it in a site. I can put it back into the road, and it has supposed to be the same road. Or I can take it someplace where they can treat it, turn it into uncontaminated soil, and use it for other sources. So that was an up and coming thing until COVID hit. It sort of slowed it down. I expect over the next few years, the desk will be pushing us to get something going for that standpoint. We're doing it right now, but the object for us is we're mostly putting it back into the street. And what we can't, we're having to send down to ESMI in Loudon, where they basically cook it, burn off all the contaminants, and then it's used again for, fill someplace. Again, DPW facilities, that's just a listing of things that we need to consider, but the key thing is, what do we want to be in the future? Sanitary sewer fund, changing it. Of course, it's its own source. It's a own fund program. Basically, we're constantly updating our SCADA. We're expanding, and we're trying to upgrade and make sure it's secure. Bond payments, we're doing about $182,000 a year just to cover the bonds that we've got for Elm Street and some of the other projects. You're seeing a lot on gravity sewer repair, upgrade, and manhole lining. We have real old pipes, and they leak like a sieve in places. We're having a problem right now with our pump station by the pedestrian bridge at Gold Street. Depending upon the time of year, and the weather conditions, it can overwhelm or come to the point where it overwhelms, close to overwhelming the pump station. So that's why we're doing the Elm Street project to improve that sewer, and we're gonna be working in the Belvedere North Sheridan area to get those under control. That will have a side effect is the less water gets into our system, the less material goes to Franklin Treatment Plant, the less costs we have. Because right now, we have agreed on how we're how we've gone to a flow model for our costs at the Winnipesaukee River Basin. Pump station upgrades, in these particular cases, we are doing a little bit each year versus doing a major project for each because we can handle that. And this is the next year's projects. And then we'll just talk a little bit about next year. Okay, so we're on Elm Street for the road. Sidewalk and drainage improvements. Again, that really depends upon how fast we can move, when we can get the money from the state for the sidewalk portion. We're doing Massachusetts and Jefferson, and right now, because of the money that we're getting from the American Rescue Plan, we're figuring out how far we can go down those two streets. And then others, we've got Beach Street on the schedule for next spring. The rest will all depend upon what happens over the winter, what happens money-wise from what you recommend and what the city's able to give me for the road program for next fiscal year. Sanitary sewer improvements. So you'll keep seeing the work done on Elm Street. We'll probably be someplace around Levitt Park when winter shuts us down this year for that. Springtime will come back open. We're going to time it so we can get the rest of it done and not interfere with the school. So we'll go past the school after the school closes for the summer. And then the pump station improvements. So we got Academy Street Bridge coming up. Again, that's about 170,000 we need to come with. That is a wider bridge. We're doing the same concept that we're doing with Court Street. Close the bridge down, pop it out, put a new bridge in place, open the bridge back up. And out years, Langley Cove. A lot of movement this fall and discussions on when it may go. There was some talk about trying to do the new water line in Weirs Boulevard that's associated with it this fall. I think it may go next spring. If it doesn't go next spring, it's going to go next fall, just based off of what Brady Sullivan's schedule looks like for the construction in Langley Cove's development. The agreement is 1/3 of the cost of the city's share is going to be funded by Brady Sullivan, because the bridge will have, instead of the 2 lanes it has now, it will have 3 lanes. One is the turn lane to allow people leaving from Langley Cove to be able to accelerate to get into Weirs Boulevard. North end of the boardwalk 2024. And the Weirs dock that we're talking about already for 2023. Pedestrian Bridge, again, we have for 2024. Simplest way is just go walk by some point, get to a point where you can see underneath it, and you can see all the damage over the years from it. And then Messer Street Bridge rehabilitation. That had some significant repairs in 2016, but they didn't have sufficient money to get it to the point where they could do so. They stopped. So the concrete deck underneath the bridge has major issues. That's why we're going to go back, mill it, and put new pavement over it to try to keep the salt water from the winter getting into it and degrading the bridge deck further. Subject to your questions. That's a
My
lot
brain is
fast.
full.
Thank you. That was a great presentation.
Counselor.
Yes, thank you. Wes, when we talk about Beach Street, are we
Right.
gonna address the drainage?
We will fix the drainage.
Okay.
The problem that you have there in getting technical is your grade changes. And so there's a break point. So everything at that break point will still go to the existing drainage culverts there. And then everything on the other side is basically flat.
Yeah, you're
So
right. The other thing is that has that Mile Hill drainage problem been addressed? Because I
Yes.
think that goes hand in hand with the problem on Beach Street.
well, it depends upon which piece of Mile Hill. There's one that was further up, almost at Provincial.
Right.
If that one, there was 2 issues that we had with it. It's a pipe that comes down just about at Provincial, makes a jog and goes at a diagonal across the street and comes out heading towards those apartment complexes.
380.
So what we did is we excavated in Laconia all the way back to the Belmont line.
Okay.
Dug it out, lined it with rock, cleaned up the inlet. And then, and we're still gotta do some improvements because they didn't do exactly what I told them to do. The overflow is gonna be such, instead of going out into the road, it's gonna go over the top and then head down that swale that we also rocked to hit to that catch basin.
Okay.
The main issue that the individual had was the amount of sand that was being dragged out and dumped.
Okay.
I can't necessarily solve it. I can reduce that problem.
May I just one more? Madam
Yes.
Chair? Academy Street Bridge. Do you anticipate the problems with the water line and the sewer line?
No, it doesn't run the same.
Doesn't
way.
run the same? Okay, that's great. All right, thank you, Wes.
And that's a lot easier to deal with because we don't have any buildings real close. Well, we have a cemetery.
Yeah, well, I don't think I don't think you have to worry about the stones.
If we're within 25 feet of a cemetery, I have to have an archaeologist on site whenever we dig.
Okay.
Gail?
You know, in such a massive budget, thank you for your presentation. I have what seems like a small question.
Yes.
When you're talking about the flashing cross lines, I'm gonna go to that crossing at Vista Market.
The system I'm talking about is the same one we have on Beacon Street West.
And did you guys put the ones in on Union Avenue by Canton's or
We
did
did
they?
that. We really should have put it at the intersection of Mechanic
Street, yeah.
and going across, but the problem what we had is there wasn't a safe place to land anybody on the other side because the parking lots and how it worked. So we had to adjust it and we figured we move it closer that way because it's sort of in between two crossing sites.
Okay,
And I'll be honest, I've seen many people push the button and we still have issues with people not stopping.
Yeah,
for 'em.
well, and I live in the South End and I'm bringing up the whole Vista thing because about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I know most of you remember this, we had a wheelchair bound person that was hit and killed in that intersection. And you're right, people still don't stop. And in this whole scheme of this budget, I personally would like to see that prioritized. It's a real important store for some of our most disadvantaged citizens who come over from Sunrise Towers in that area, and that store is their only access to an awful lot of fruits, vegetables, whatever you think of Vista, they don't, a lot of these people, that's a real important store for them.
Sure.
And I'd just like to see, to the committee and to you, I'd like to see that crossing made more of a priority if possible.
I was actually going to bring that up because I think I figured out the problem. I was driving along there. It's the light from Vista. It actually casts a shadow.
It does.
And so you're really not seeing the people at the crosswalk. And I've always wanted a flashing
Aren't there
light
bump
there.
outs there?
No.
And occasionally Public Works puts out those, stop for pedestrian and crosswalk signs, but those have got to come in the winter. They're not always practical.
Yeah.
No, they.
I know in this whole massive budget that you presented, that's probably a smaller money ticket item. That's all I'm gonna say. It's just a personal thing of mine. It's a dangerous spot to cross, but it's necessary because
Yeah.
so many of our pedestrian only residents live in that area and they don't have vehicles.
Right.
So
Thank you. Counselor?
Thank you. I agree with Gail on that there. I've been trying to get that in there for a lot of years. And what happened is the state
is it,
way back when made them illegal or something, remember?
They did for a while.
Yes.
Yes.
So we couldn't put it in,
okay.
but then they started using them so they became legal again.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Funny how that
I
happens.
can very briefly explain it.
Yeah.
The
Meredith.
rules that deal, and not NHDOT, but USDOT is nothing can be patented.
Oh, good Lord.
It has to be open sourced and we were doing it and it was patented. So the guy gave up his patent and we were able to start using it again.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
So we did put the bump outs out in
yeah.
after that,
No, and that was after
But that
that
was kind of
person
a-
was killed, yeah.
a fix for instead of the lights, but now we can do the lights. So I agree with the lights. I've been trying to get those there for a while. But if you put the lights,
We're gonna have to put bollards on that.
thank you.
You're gonna
Don't
have to
put either
what?
that or don't put them so close to the road.
Well, part of, we have to put them to meet ADA, but
Oh, it's,
we're still having problems with people
pipes
passing on the
filled with
right,
concrete to
crashing into the
protect
curb.
structure.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
Ground.
you think they'd see all the signs that we have there and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
So that one's gonna have to have bollards.
Yeah, and I would say, and I suggested to the city manager on
Yeah, I've-
Beacon
I've-
West, we lost 2 of those already.
Yeah.
And they haven't even been up a year, I don't think.
Yeah, I've got it on the work order.
Okay.
Yeah, and.
So Bollards are not that expensive. You know,
And,
just
and
about
to
digging a
that end,
hole.
and this is a silly thing, and it's not capital improvement, but there is one parking space in front of a store there to the right, if you're heading south. In front of the natural food store.
Oh, in the street,
In the
yes.
street, one parking space in the street. There's a little big part of me that like to see that space eliminated. There's parking on the side.
We'll
It
give them your
creates.
phone number.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm just saying that it creates a visual, there's a lot of distraction in that area, and I see
No,
that.
there is, there
I
is.
see that as a safety issue, and that one parking space isn't gonna make or break that business. I'm sorry to your business, but you know my address. I'm easy to find. But I think that would cut down on a sight line. I know that's not capital improvement, but I just want to make that statement that it's a dangerous intersection and it's really popular and well-used, and there's a lot of traffic there. There's just a lot going on.
Thank you. Peter?
Thanks. About your headquarters, I think I remember you saying that there isn't a whole hell of a lot you can do on the existing site because the poor soils and drainage.
Basically, anything building wise, we're gonna have to build, it's gonna have to be wholly supported on piers, just like they did with the expansion of Irwin.
Right.
They had a benefit, they're further away from the swamp was. I'm
Yeah.
right on top,
You're
everyone
right
told
on
me, I'm right
top.
on top of the
You're
swamp.
all filled land.
Yeah.
So for the sake of argument, we'd be looking at a different site because you can't really expand there either, right?
That's the problem that I see is with all the rules and regulations that are coming down and all the different things we're gonna have to do, the operation is gonna expand. Are we gonna be on the same site where we have all, or near where we have all of our yard waste composting operation? Are we gonna be beside where we've got to do our
You
limited
gotta
reuse
figure out
sites?
how much area you need,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But there are a number of possible sites that
There are.
the city already owns. About the bridge here, did you say that the transportation alternative program could pay some or all of the repairs to that?
The pedestrian bridge are eligible for the transportation alternative program.
Okay, so can it be tied into the river in some way? Like there's a boat launch there.
I don't think they'll pay for anything that's other than pedestrians,
Right.
bicyclists, and multi-use.
Well, it is access to.
Yes, but I
Winnisquam.
think the transportation says that's more recreation and Department of Interior.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, that's where I'm going with this. You probably noticed what Franklin's done recently. And we could do that too. In fact, we probably got a better site for it, just as there's not as many rapids. It's just a little fast below the dam and that's it. Okay. The transportation money that you're talking about, there's all these different programs. Some of them are matches and some of them are 100%. Is that what is that where you're going with all these? Are they infrastructure support grants for the most part from USDOT?
The transportation alternative programs in 80/20. That's in federal regulations.
Okay,
The RAISE program is more flexible for rural areas, and we're considered rural. Urban for there is 200,000 or
Right.
greater.
Well, that
That's
makes
not
sense.
us.
right.
The way they said it in the regulation, it can be up to 100%. The way to think of it is that RAISE grant underneath a different name was what they did, use the money for the downtown Concord upgrade. I mean, you're in competition for things like that.
Right.
So that's why that's a highly competitive. The ones that I was able to find, the packets that they submitted it, were all professionally done by engineering consultants. Because all the research that you have to do to support it to be competitive.
And if I can just have one more
Yes.
question. Master Plan Steering Committee, we've been talking about Hilliard Road a lot. One of the possible amendments to the master plan would be to come up with some sort of an organized way to increase development in the northwest quadrant. So as the counselor here will back me on this, we've talked about DPW, not DPW, Water Works, bringing a line up to basically the heights on Parade Road. Is that something that Public Works and Water could come up with a study on or something?
If the piece, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to tell us what is going out there. So if
Well-
you can't tell us what's going out there, we can't figure out what we're gonna have to build to get there.
One of the ideas we talked about was, let's do the infrastructure in phases. So it could start out as a recreational trail, but establish a right of way so that when the developers want to, because it's going to open up properties for development, you see, then the road could be improved from both ends until it finally meets.
We already have a right of way. It's a class 6 road.
Right,
So the challenge is who does what first?
right.
And for example, is I can't build a full up sewer system through there and have only 10 houses on it. The system won't work.
Right.
So, yeah,
Hamburg has
basically,
that problem.
it'll just stay in there. And the state won't let me build it.
Right.
Same with the water. If it's
Same with the
not
water,
used,
right.
It's gonna
So the
deteriorate.
Right.
piece is
Gotta have.
you almost have
So it
to.
all
come-
has to be coordinated at the same time.
You have to come up
develop
with a
it.
plan somehow of how you're building it out. Realistically, and I'd have to talk with, I know where my sewer is. I'd have to talk with Ben, but I think most of the water available is on the Pickerel Cove side.
Right,
So if you're planning to do it, then your development plan would be from the Endicott Street north side going the other way. And then you could chunk it. And then you could do little pieces of water and maybe little pieces of sewer. Again, we're gonna have that problem is how do we handle flow without wasting a lot of water and having sewage stuck in there? Because you can't have an 8-inch pipe and you got 10 houses on it. It's not gonna flow.
well, maybe we can come up with a plan, some sort of a study that could talk about how to phase that. Because we are going to need developers to build, or there's no need for the infrastructure. And as the councils have pointed out, right, it doesn't even work properly unless.
You need, I don't know, 400 or 500 houses up there to make all that work right.
Yeah.
I mean, when they built Aqua Soleil and they put that tank up there.
Yeah.
They had to turn the water on almost 24 hours a day so it would move,
Right,
because otherwise it spoils in the pipes, in the tank.
Right.
So they just had to let the water go on the ground.
And I don't have that unless they flush the water down the sewer, and they can't flush the water down the sewer because the state won't let us do it. So I have to have enough sewage flow in the system to be able to make that pipe work.
okay. Well, it bears further study, I think.
And I think, if I may,
Yes.
I think it's, you sort of have a catch-22 here. We can predict 500 additional homes. But without the water and the sewer, nobody's going to put in the 500 homes. There are certain preliminary steps, I think, one of which is a review of the zoning.
Right.
Because if it's 2-acre zoning, you can't get 500 homes in the whole northwest quadrant of the city. But if it's down to 1 acre or half-acre zoning, then maybe things will start to move
We
along.
do cluster developments. Yeah,
You
One
need
of
a
the,
development, the developer that's gonna say, I'm gonna go put 500 homes in there, let's work together.
yeah.
Time schedule.
well, there may be some mid-ground there, but one of the questions that I have along with that is, as the counselor suggests, a developer comes in and starts to pay for the development of water off of Hilliard or wherever. We did that with Brady Sullivan on Roller Coaster Road. And then folks that live up there tell me, well, if I want to hook into it, I have to pay Brady Sullivan apparently some significant payback for what he's installed.
I'm gonna, I'll explain it with what I know. Not as another example.
Hey, where's Mike when you need him?
We have more houses on Summit Avenue who've come up positive for 1,4-dioxane. So that means we have to extend the water line to it.
Oh, God.
We have a house who's beyond the contamination site who wants the water line extended to it. So he is going to build the water main to his house, connect to it. We're going to pay the cost of connecting the houses to the main, and then we're going to pay back to him the share of that connection. So it costs us less, but it still costs us more. You know what I'm talking about? It's less than putting
Right.
the full line in, but it's more than just connecting houses. We have a little bit money left from the extension that we had to do previously, but not enough to do everything. So we're out here figuring where I can get money from other programs. I have money left to cover things.
The counselor asked about Mile Hill. Doesn't Phil Brouillard have a development going in on the other side of the road from,
Yes, he does.
as he started work?
Not that I know.
No.
No, okay. So
That was,
Getting back to Hilliard Road, I was out there recently. Number of the residents are concerned about, and you mentioned the bridge there, or the culvert, I think it really is. So I went out to look at that, and by the way, they were complimentary of the job the DPW did to keep that thing cleaned out. They showed me the big tree trunk you used.
yes.
But I was impressed, positively. But what then concerned me as I went by that and up the hill, there's a brand new house going in there. It's very tight to what looks like the right of way just before the fence, the gate.
Right.
Do we own to the right of that?
I'd have to look at the tax maps. When he cited it, he had to cite the distance, the normal setbacks off
Yeah.
our cities right away. So it could be in that particular case, it's more offset to the right. But the class 6 road actually starts right there where Hillcroft makes the turn left.
Right. I would hope we'd at least take a look sometime, probably in the spring, just to see what it looks like and what we can do to improve it so that at some point we can start to use that as a through road. I don't expect that to happen next year or 5
Well,
years, but
the piece that we've got to, because it's basically, I'm going to use my terminology. It's a trail. It's a combat trail. It's just, they clear cut it and they punch through to get 4x4s through. If we're going to go up to full width, call it gravel road, we're going to have an AOT, which is our fancy permit for disturbing soil, which, I mean, it's not, a little bit, we're going to have a design, we're going to have all that to be able to get it through Department of Environmental Services to get the permit. So it's more of a case of, we got to know what we're doing before we can even start the process of even improving it.
well, that'll be new and different, won't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
My last question, excuse me, if I may. The flashing yellow lights, I heard you say Oak and North Main.
That's possible to do it there.
Okay, I thought you told me, you and I had a conversation recently, and I thought you told me it was a significant cost to upgrade
There
that.
is a significant cost. This is kind of rule sort of is, if I touch the signal, I got to bring it up to ADA standards. So the question comes in is, what do I have to do to that signal to be able to make it a flashing arrow? If I have all the conduit and I have sufficient cable to go up there and I don't have to modify my box, I probably could get away with just putting the system in there. I still have to have a traffic engineer tell me what all the program inputs need to be. But if I have to go in and start running new conduit to make everything work, then at that point, I think I probably crossed the line and I got to bring up the intersection to ADA standards.
Is that like a financial line or a?
No, it's more of,
Like a dispersal or amount of
it's more of a case of,
disturbance?
it's minor work versus major work. It's
Okay.
Sort of to,
All right,
Uh,
well, that's-
and,
But that intersection was already done.
no, it doesn't, it's not even close to meeting ADA standards.
When we put in all that, those new lighting.
But it's not even close.
Well, ADA standards isn't necessarily just the lights.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotta have the tip downs, the slope's gotta be right. I gotta,
Right.
Right.
yeah.
So, but it's on our list to get to work on.
Yes.
Okay.
So probably what would be coming up first would be the ADA improvements to it. And then as part of the ADA improvements, we would do the flashing signal modification to it. Because the ADA is gonna take up 9/10 of the money.
You know,
Um,
I think the left turn lane, especially the one in Lakeport, is amazing because you didn't have enough of a stacking lane there to begin with. But one thing I would suggest is that there be a sign to remind people that they still must yield to all traffic. They don't yield for traffic taking a right off Union onto Elm, and they're supposed to yield for all traffic. So maybe a sign above the flashing
I
yellow.
actually think there's a sign there.
There's a sign that's, no, there's no right turn on red. I didn't think there was a must yield, is there?
I think so. I'll have to double check. I know there's one on the Clinton Elm one. I think there's one on the other legs too.
There are signs all over the United States that say speed limit 45, and nobody pays attention to those either. So I'm not sure a sign will help you.
We just have a question from Paul.
Yep. Regarding guardrails, I was wondering if there was anything in the works or a study have been done on Roller Coaster Road where we keep having motorcycles go off. In-
And factor into the speed limit sign.
I'll probably get my head taken off. I can't do anything about motorcycles who's speeding and maybe inebriated. Forget.
But
that piece. I
it's the
can't do
same
anything.
corner though.
Pardon?
It's the same corner every time.
What could they do? Bank it?
Well, Paul, I can tell you one thing. they won't
And
gas.
for motorcyclists, a guardrail could be even worse.
All right, well, I just was wondering if it's
just
been
wanted
looked at, that's all.
To say about a year ago now, maybe over my objection, the ZBA approved a campground in there for about 125 units. Now, there's going to be a permanent campground. But it's still a campground according to state law. And that's going to add a considerable amount of summer traffic to that road. I don't know where they are in the development stage. With that being said, Mr. Dugan makes a great point on that whole road, scenic road, and Butson Road.
I gotta be technical for half a second. Guardrails, national standard has changed. They gotta be higher. Our guardrails on Weirs Boulevard do not meet the national standard. No big deal right now until I repave it. Then I gotta redo all my guardrails.
Don't raise the guardrails, lower the road.
Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
I could do that, but that's a lot more costly.
There's got to be a company somewhere that spends most of its time changing those rules. Because you see the state put in wire guardrails, take out wire guardrails and put in solid steel guardrails and then take those out and put the wired ones back in.
There's actually two different types of wire. The ones that used to be by Irwin Marine
Yep.
weren't standard, but they have ones now where they're actually are designed to stretch and pull,
Hmm.
slow vehicles down, especially.
the
they use
slingshot
interstate
effect.
Before they cross into the next, the next
Yep.
set of lanes.
Any other questions? for
Yes,
Wes?
Madam Chair. Hello?
Oh,
Hello? This is
Charlie.
Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Charlie.
I have a question, Wes. I've noticed, Wes, that the state, like up at the Weirs Bridge, the railroad bridge they put up and over there by Patrick's on 11B. And I've noticed in other areas of the state, when they've replaced the bridges, they've put in a concrete top. And I wondered, I'm assuming that they're doing that because the concrete stands up better than the asphalt does. And I just wonder if there's any thought to the city doing that as we replace these bridges.
The answer is, we don't really want concrete tops in Northeast with the amount of salt that we use, because concrete and salt don't go together well. Generally, what we're doing and what we're doing in other places is we're putting a concrete underneath the asphalt, and then we're putting the asphalt on top as a sealer to protect the concrete.
Well, it's interesting that you would say that, and the state seems to must be thinking something different. But anyway, okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? I guess we're great. Thank you, Wes. That was excellent. Informative. As it is 8:30, can we have a motion? Thank you.
And
And we have a second.
Done.
discussion?
Yeah.
Well,